It's Yoshito. Now, let me ask you something. What does it mean to be human? And more importantly, how do you stay human when the world tries to turn you into something else? Something darker, something monstrous? That, my friends, is the question at the heart of Tokyo. On the surface is a dark fantasy manga written by Soi Ishida, but beneath that surface, it's a story about identity, oppression, surviving trauma, the cycle of violence, and so much more. This is a story about what happens when you're trapped between two worlds and neither of them wants you. This is Tokyo. Ken Kaneki was just an ordinary university student, the quiet, bookish type. The kind of guy who'd rather spend his afternoons curled up in a cafe with a novel by his favorite author than doing anything else. One day, while hanging out with his best friend Hide at their go-to coffee spot, Anteku, a stunning girl named Rize walks in. Naturally, Kaneki's smitten, but he's too shy to make a move. Hide, ever the realist, tells him he's delusional. She's way out of his league. But fate had other plans. Rize drops a book and Kaneki helps her pick it up. Noticing it's by the same author he loves, they spark a conversation. One that leads to them agreeing to going on a date. During that date, as they browse through a bookstore together, they run into Toka, the same girl who works at Anteku, the one that Hide always flirts with. Her eyes linger on Rize, and there's a certain tension in the air, like she knows something that Kaneki doesn't, but she says nothing and they move on. Later that evening, Rize asks Kaneki to walk her down a quiet alley, saying she's scared because of the recent ghoul attacks. Kaneki agrees, and that's when everything changes. Her tone shifts. She starts flirting, teasing him, saying she knows he's been watching her, and that she's been watching him too, and then, without warning, she strikes. Rize bites into his shoulder, revealing her true nature. She's a ghoul. What follows is a brutal attack and a chain of events that reshapes Kaneki's life forever. He survives, barely, but wakes up in a hospital to discover the unthinkable. Ghoul organs have been transplanted into his body. Kaneki is no longer fully human, and not fully ghoul either. This origin story kicks off Tokyo Ghoul, a dark, fantastical tale full of tragedy and psychological twists. As Kaneki struggles to come to terms with his new identity, he's forced to confront the brutal realities of both the human and the ghoul worlds. Caught in between, he must learn to navigate a life where he no longer belongs, all while hiding the truth from the people he cares about. From eternal conflict to violent clashes, Tokyo Ghoul is as much about survival as it is about selfhood. It's not just about monsters fighting humans, it's about what happens when the line between humanity and monstrosity is blurred. At the heart of Tokyo Ghoul is Ken Kaneki, a young man who has never asked for the life he was forced into. His journey from a timid, book-loving student to something much darker isn't just a physical transformation, it's a psychological unraveling. Kaneki is a character defined by contradiction. He wants to protect others, but often can't even protect himself. He yearns for connection, yet constantly pushes people away out of fear of hurting them. His inner turmoil between his human empathy and his ghoul instincts is what drives the story forward and gives it its emotional weight. Watching him wrestle with identity, morality, and survival makes him one of the most compelling protagonists in modern dark fiction. But Kaneki's story wouldn't be half as powerful without the characters around him. Tokyo Ghoul has one of the most emotionally resonant supporting casts in any manga. Nearly every character you meet has a backstory, a struggle, a reason for the way they are, and more often than not, you'll find yourself empathizing with them, even when you're on the opposite side of the conflict. Take Toka Kirishima, the sharp-tongued waitress from Anteku. Cold and combative at first, Toka is someone carrying the burden of a double life, one where she's forced to fight and kill, but still clings on to the idea of living peacefully among humans. Her tough exterior hides deep vulnerability and a longing for connection. Then there's Hinami Fuiguchi, a soft-spoken ghoul child who's far too innocent for the world she's been born into. Her story is one of the first major emotional gut punches in the series. Through her, we see the tragedy of this human-ghoul conflict from a child's eyes, where the violence and fear replaces love and safety far too soon. On the other side of the spectrum is Gurero Mado, a ghoul investigator working for the CCG. At first, he seems like a cold, obsessive villain, someone hell-bent on eradicating ghouls without mercy, but as we peel back the layers, we see a man driven by grief, vengeance, and the belief that he's doing the right thing. He represents a chilling reminder that even humans can lose their humanity in the name of justice. The brilliance of Tokyo Ghoul lies in how it refuses to draw clear moral lines. Every character, ghoul or human, is a product of their past, and while not everyone is redeemable, most of them are understandable. These aren't just side characters, they are fully realized people with pain, purpose, and complexity, and that's what makes this world feel hauntingly real. The world of Tokyo Ghoul is one of the most immersive and hauntingly believable settings in manga. It imagines a Tokyo almost identical to ours, except it is crawling with creatures called ghouls. They look just like humans, they blend in, but they can only survive by consuming human flesh. Ghouls aren't mindless monsters, they have their own communities, cultures, and personal struggles. They feel love, grief, fear, just like humans. But because of what they are, society views them as a threat that must be hunted down. And that's where the CCG, or Commission of Counter Ghoul, comes in, a government agency tasked with identifying and exterminating ghouls. They see it as a war for humanity's survival. To fight ghouls, CCG investigators wield specialized weapons called Quinkes, which are made from the organs of defeated ghouls. Ghouls, on the other hand, have their own biological weapon, the Kagune, a monstrous appendage that erupts from the back during combat, with different types depending on the ghoul's physiology. The result is a brutal arms race, humans using dead bodies of ghouls to kill more of them, and ghouls constantly evolving to stay ahead. But the world isn't painted black and white. Ishida's Tokyo is layered, divided into wards, each with its own population, dangers, and political dynamics. Ghouls live in the shadows, forming secret networks and sanctuaries like Anteku, a cafe that doubles as a haven for ghouls trying to coexist peacefully with humans. What makes the world building so powerful is that nothing feels forced. You aren't bogged down with walls of exposition. You learn how this society works by living in it through Kaneki's eyes. As he descends deeper into the world of ghouls, the clean lines between good and evil begin to blur, and you begin to question, who are the real monsters here? And just when you think you've got the rules figured out, Tokyo Ghoul introduces new layers, underground organizations, radical ideologies, internal politics, all which reflect the complexity of real-world conflict and identity. Everything from the terminology to the tone feels meticulously crafted. The world doesn't just serve the plot, it shapes the characters, their choices, and their pain. It's not just a setting, it's a system, one that's broken, violent, and terrifyingly real. The art in Tokyo Ghoul is absolutely breathtaking. At first glance, it doesn't seem all that unique. Early chapters have more restrained, almost minimalist styles, nothing too flashy or overly detailed. But then you hit that first important moment, and suddenly you're hooked. It's as if Sui Ishida saves his visual brilliance for when it matters the most. And when it hits, it really hits. As the story progresses, the art evolves dramatically. It becomes darker, grittier, and far more intricate. Ishida's ability to shift the tone of a panel through line work alone is masterful. The emotion, the madness, the beauty, the horror, it all bleeds through the page. Symbolism plays a huge role, with visual metaphors layered into everything from character poses to panel compositions. What makes the art so compelling, in my own words, is that it's gorgeously grotesque. Scenes that should feel disturbing or repulsive, twisted bodies, monstrous transformations, blood and chaos, are drawn with a strange beauty. There is a raw elegance to the way Ishida illustrates suffering, one that makes you stop and stare even when you want to look away. The facial expressions are especially powerful. Characters don't just feel emotions, they radiate them. Fear, rage, despair, longing, you can see it all in their eyes, in the way their mouths tremble or their bodies fall apart. Some panels feel like they're breaking the fourth wall, like the characters are clawing their way out of the page just to be heard. Now, Tokyo Ghoul isn't just a story about monsters eating people. It is a deep psychological exploration of what it means to exist in a world that tries to define you before you can even define yourself. Beneath the blood and brutality lies a story that's hauntingly human. Let's break down some of the core themes. Identity and duality. At the heart of it all, it's Kaneki's transformation, not just of body, but of self. Is he human? Is he ghoul? Or is he something in between? And if he's both, does that mean he belongs nowhere or everywhere? Tokyo Ghoul constantly challenges our sense of identity, asking who are we really, when the world forces us into roles we never chose. Species oppression. From the outside, ghouls are predators, dangerous creatures who feed on humans. But once you're inside their world, you start to see the fear, the hunger, the desperation. The CCG, Commission of Counter Ghoul, claims to be humanity's protectors, but from a ghoul's point of view, humans are just as monstrous. The manga never tells you who's right, it just shows you how broken the system is from both sides. Cycle of violence. Hatred doesn't come from nowhere, it's passed down, inherited, and recycled. Tokyo Ghoul is painfully aware of this, that revenge breeds revenge, and the wounds of one generation becomes the battles of the next. The question becomes, can anyone break that cycle, or are we all just doomed to repeat it? Unification versus division. Kaneki's very existence as both ghoul and human is a contradiction, but it also makes him a bridge. He sees the pain of both sides and becomes a symbol of possible coexistence. But empathy is rarely enough. The story doesn't offer easy answers, it simply asks, is understanding even possible in a world so divided by fear? Survival and trauma. Everyone in Tokyo Ghoul is broken in some way. Whether ghoul or human, no one escapes unscarred. The series doesn't shy away from showing the effects of trauma and how different people cope. Some grow stronger, some shut down, others lose themselves completely. It's raw, it's honest. Finding meaning in chaos. Amid all the bloodshed, Tokyo Ghoul still manages to ask, what's the point of all this pain? For Kaneki and the others, the answer lies in the little things: a meal shared, a memory protected, a friend saved. When surrounded by death, the story tells us that life still has meaning, you just have to find it. Relationships and connection. No one survives alone, whether it's friendship, family, or love. Connection is what keeps these characters going and sometimes what destroys them. From the tenderness of found families to the tragedy of doomed bonds, Tokyo Ghoul shows that relationships are what defines us, even when everything else is falling apart. These themes aren't just sprinkled in, they are the bones of the story. They give weight to the violence, depth to the characters, and humanity to the monsters. If you made it this far into the video, I thank you genuinely. I appreciate the support. Hopefully I've convinced some of you to pick up this manga and read it for yourself. Now, I asked at the start of this video, what does it mean to be human? And after reading Tokyo Ghoul, I still don't have a clear answer. But maybe that's the point. Humanity isn't about biology. It's not about whether you're human or ghoul. It's about what you choose to become, even when the world is telling you to be a monster. Tokyo Ghoul is a tragedy, a coming of age, a horror story. But more than anything, it's a reminder that in a world full of violence, empathy is the most radical thing you can hold on to. Thanks for watching. This has been Yoshito, and I'll see you in the next one.